Sean here in the very heart of London. Welcome back to On This Day in History. Thanks so much, as I say, for commenting on the previous On This Days. I know they do make you feel a tad old, don't they? But isn't it nice to have those memories as well? And as I often say, you know, golden memories, really, yes. Only yesteryear, it seems like yesterday, doesn't it? But on this day, let me tell you, a very spectacular TV series aired for the very first time way back in 1971. Now, it was a TV series that was put together with two superstars in the lead roles. We're talking Sir Roger Moore and the brilliant Tony Curtis. That's right, The Persuaders. Not only was The Persuaders great fun, it was like a forerunner, really, when you think about it, of Dallas and Dynasty and all those great soaps of the day. But it was like a pre-runner, really, of those great soaps, wasn't it, of the 80s and 90s. You know, glamorous cars, fabulous fashions, guest stars, all of that sort of stuff. Many famous people guest starred in that, including, of course, the brilliant and gorgeous Susan George, Dame Joan Collins, who didn't particularly get on very well with Tony Curtis, but we'll leave that there. And it was a spectacular success from the off. The bigger problem was the makers behind the TV show, ATV Lou Grade, thought it was too expensive to make, hence the reason they couldn't get backing for further episodes. So Roger told me over many chats that it was one of his favourite shows, and of course it was a precursor, wasn't it, to him landing the Bond role. In fact, apparently Bond producers saw him in the role of the Persuaders and thought, yeah, he is our next James Bond. And as Roger told me, he couldn't quite believe it when they came up with the role. Now, more importantly, Tony Curtis apparently was a little bit tricky to work with because he didn't really stick to the script, couldn't be bothered to follow the lines, and liked to do his own stunts. A lot of problems, obviously, with insurance, as one can imagine. But as ever, if you're a fan of Roger Moore, do check bits out on YouTube and Tony Curtis, because there are full episodes free to watch. And trust me, you won't be disappointed. But as ever, what else happened on this day? In 1952, on this day, a certain man with a cape who wore his underpants on the outside of his own trousers actually saved the day. That's right, Superman saved TV. Back in July 1951, Robert L. Lippert filmed the black and white film Superman and the Mole Men, which starred George Reeves and Phyllis Coates. It was released in November, and the movie was meant to be used as a pilot for a new TV series, Adventures of Superman, which debuted on this day in 1952. Now, for those out there, can you remember who actually sponsored the TV show? I know you're all way too young. It was actually sponsored by none other than the kings of breakfast cereal, Kellogg's. And really it did a lot for their brand, because apparently children felt that if they ate Kellogg's, whichever, you know, cereal they decided to eat, they would be given Superman powers. After the very first season of the show, Coates left the series and then Noel Neill stepped in. The show went on to great success, but of course tragedy hit its star, George Reeves. Now, on this day, way back in 1934, a man who changed the very, well, culture, if you like, of popular music by his foresight, his sort of, well, persistence to make these four men from Liverpool superstars of the pop world. We're talking about the late and brilliant Brian Epstein. He sadly left us in 1967, but it was on this day that he was born, and of course he was destined for great things, but sadly left us way too early. Now, if you've been over here to the United Kingdom, you'll know that we have many spectacular attractions, but possibly none more strange, if you like, to many people at least, than the infamous Blackpool Illuminations. It's a sight to behold. It's been going for many years. And of course, many famous people have switched on the lights. Everybody from prime ministers to the American superstar actress Jane Mansfield, way back in the late 1950s. But it was on this day in 1879 that the Blackpool Illuminations were switched on for the very first time. And apparently people were very frightened because, of course, electricity was still new. And some of the bulbs did pop and bang, of course, in the wind and the rain with the sea fret and all that sort of stuff. But amazing to think that even way back in 1879, on this day, they were creating something that would last right through until this day. They've recently been switched on once again. Now, for all young ladies out there who remember this particular lady, it was brilliant, wasn't it, this particular TV show? Way back in 1970, it was Mary Richards' first day on the job. That's right, although the name was The Mary Tyler Moore Show, it was more of an ensemble piece, and it was really groundbreaking TV because first and foremost, it had the wonderful Mary Tyler Moore in the lead role. It had lots of spin-off series as well, but my particular favourite, and I don't know if you remember this at all, do you remember Rhoda with Valerie Harper? I thought that was great, along with her very acidic mother. It's still showing around the world today, proving, of course, that a great show, well written, well acted and well produced, can always go through the decades. Now, did you do this way back in 1960 on this day? And could you still do it now? I don't know about me. I don't know if you can still do it. But way back on this day in 1960, The Twist by the brilliant Chubby Checker was released. And then it came back again in 1963, around about this period. It was one of those things, wasn't it, that a lot of people sort of laughed at, you know, when you think about it. But it was great fun, wasn't it? But as I say, for those of us who are a little bit more seasoned now, trying to twist and go a little bit too low down could be a bit of a problem unless there's a chair or somebody to hold on to. Or as ever, is it just me? And don't all agree. On this day in 1984, it was the very first time we were introduced to these two hunks of television. That's right, who remembers that look? Do you remember the rolled up t-shirts, the rolled up trousers? We're talking if you fellas, of course. They started a mega fashion trend. The beautiful boys of Miami Vice, Don Johnson, Philip, Michael Thomas, just great stories, fabulous guest stars, and really at a time when everything was all about sun, glamour, lots of money, lots of cars, everything. This show was a spectacular success. And who remembers, in fact, that Don Johnson then went on to have a liaison, romantic links with the superstar singer Barbra Streisand. So much so they recorded a duet together, which was a mega hit. Miami Vice is still in reruns today around the world and still one of the most popular series. They did try and do a remake, but these things are a moment in time. Definitely, I think, the idea when you look at it was George Michael with Wham. Do you remember the Club Tropicana video? I often wondered if George had copied that look, of course, for Miami Vice. Seemingly he told me not, but when you look at it again, you can't help but think it was inspired. Go and check Miami Vice out on, of course, YouTube right now. Now you're up to date with what happened on this day in history, and as ever, I hopefully will see you soon. Neil Shawn in the very heart of London.